I'm Raymond Arroyo. Welcome to our EWTN News continuing coverage of Pope John Paul II's historic visit to Cuba, a journey of hope. This is day 5 of the papal visit. Within the half hour, we'll be bringing you live coverage of the Holy Father's Mass from Havana. And now I'm joined by Deacon de los Reyes and Ambassador Pietra. Alberto Pietra, I thank you both for joining us. Now, the Holy Father has sounded some amazing and strong clarion calls to the people of Cuba throughout the week, and I want to recap a few of those. He said to recap, on Wednesday, the Holy Father asked Cuba to open itself up to the world and asked the world to open itself to Cuba. We, of course, interpreted that as a spiritual call.
Exactly.
Call to open them up in that way. The very next day in Santa Clara, he forcefully declared the family is the basic unit of society. And he said it's a sanctuary where the children must be educated in the truth. He said the path to overcoming the evils of facing Cuban society is Jesus Christ. And then following that, on Friday, the Pope had a special message for the youth of Cuba. And he urged them to look for happiness inside themselves, in virtue and in sacrifice, which are very bold and statements we haven't heard in a long time, in Cuba certainly. Yes, yes. On Saturday, the Pope spoke of social justice and the dignity of every individual. He said everyone had a duty to participate in society equally. So if we look back on this, he really has started to move from the very center of society, the family, to the youth, to the society as a whole. And today we expect a recap. Isn't that the plan here, to sanctify each level of society?
Yes, definitely, because that's what is going to bring about the change in the society in Cuba. Raymond, I don't know if it called to my attention. I was meditating last night the words of the Holy Father, and there was a word that came at the time of the Mass to the youth. The Holy Father talked about friendship, and the youth is for the youth, friendship is something very, very, very important, because they need to have friends where they can share with. They need to have friends that can actually discuss these things without being afraid, of what's going to happen to them if they go. See, in the society of Cuba under communism, you lose that. You lose the trust in people.
And the individuality, the individual freedom to express yourself.
And when the Holy Father called for friendship, when he called for friendship, I think it was very significant for the youth, the call for friendship.
Ambassador, what of these themes resonate with you and strikes you as something that the Cuban people will instantly respond to and that will strike a deep chord in them?
Well, I think this very concept of friendship, I think, is absolutely true, and I think this is the only way really we can change society. It has to come from these personal friendships, that we try to have these friendships. They trust us, we trust them, and this is the way we can perform all sorts of things. And probably if you speak from a big, just concentration and so forth, that's very good, I'm not denying that. But I think the basis is, especially when you're talking about apostolate in the sense of trying to convince people of the truth.
These personal relationships become integral.
It has to come from this personal relationship, and unfortunately, very often, this is what we tend to forget.
Now, to give us some perspective, excuse me just one moment, from Cuba, we go live to our correspondent, Cecilia Domeco, who is standing by in Havana. Good morning, Cecilia.
Good morning.
What was the reaction to the very strong remarks by Archbishop Maurice Etui at yesterday's Mass? He opened and addressed the Holy Father with some very strong words.
Yes, Raymond. Well, as you know, the Archbishop made an urgent call for more openness and democracy in Cuba. He also made a critique of the role Leninism, Marxism has played here, and especially in relation to the relations between church and state. I went out into the street to see what people had thought about the Archbishop's words. I found that people were very interested, but not surprised by what he had said.
Why not?
Actually, some people had... Well, they weren't surprised because they said that this is something that parish priests have been talking about for 2 years all over the country. They did say that they were necessary words then, that he was a brave man for saying them in front of so many people, because this was being broadcast, of course, on national television. But that they were very appropriate, that the Archbishop hadn't only criticized Marxism, Leninism, but had also criticized those Cubans who are falling under the influence of foreign things like consumerism. So they said it's time somebody said that, and it's okay that he said it because he's a Cuban and he can criticize us because he's one of us.
Cecilia, what was the reaction to the Pope's address at the Sanctuary of St. Lazarus last evening, particularly regarding political prisoners? He said that he was in solidarity with them.
Yes, and he sent them a special greeting, a greeting to them and their families, and said that, of course, prisoners' human rights should be respected as well. The important thing related to that, of course, is that the Holy Father and the Vatican have asked the government to free a group of about 500 prisoners, not all of them political, in Cuban jails, and the government has said that it's studying this. It's rumored, this is not confirmed, but there is a rumor going around that the government will make a statement regarding those, the release of the prisoners today. And of course, if it's positive, which it most likely will be, it will be a very happy ending to the Pope's visit.
Well, we keep looking for that. And what can we expect from today's Mass, Cecilia? We see the Holy Father beginning to enter the plaza there, the plaza of Jose Marti.
Well, today's Mass, everyone is expecting the Holy Father to summarize some of the other messages from the other Masses. He most likely will touch upon family values again and the importance of education, social justice and human rights. I'm sure that everyone thinks that's going to come up again. And he's sure to make one more call to Cuban youth, because as you know, the Holy Father believes that youth is the future of the Church, and the youth heard this message and are very happy with the Holy Father's message toward them, and I'm sure that he will make one last call to them to be the apostles of the year 2000.
Very good. I thank you so much, Cecilia, for this and all your reports throughout the visit. We'll be checking with you a little later today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So we heard there the Holy Father will summarize, as we said a little earlier, all of his very brave and strong comments throughout the week. Social justice, education, strengthening the family, and of course friendship and personal relations, as you stressed a little earlier.
You know, it's important that to remember that all these cities that the Holy Father has visited, Santa Clara, Camagüey, Oriente, the size of those cities is not the size of the city of Havana. Havana is the capital. Havana is a very large city, and if we saw the crowds we saw in Santa Clara, Camagüey, and Santiago, I wouldn't be surprised to see very huge crowds in Havana.
We should just show you some of the initial images we're getting from Havana. Here you see the large Sacred Heart image in the background there in this plaza of Jose Marti. Previously, the only thing seen in this square were pictures of Marxist-Leninist heroes. And now you see this large Sacred Heart, which has been up for about a week now. You see the large crowds there gathering, and the site of the papal Mass all prepared. The Holy Father is making his way now to vest for the Mass, and we will go back to that footage a little later. Now, we should say Americans are also
seeing a lot of people, a lot of dissidents coming out and speaking out and calling on the phone to the United States and talking to newspapers in the United States and writing their own. It's been already a kind of a movement, right? And now with the Holy Father and with the spiritual input, with Jesus in the hearts of people, the doors are open, and I don't believe they're going to be able to close them.
Ambassador, the lingering effects, in your opinion, of this papal visit?
I've always maintained that I think we have to make the distinction between the people of Cuba and the government of Cuba. I'm thinking from the point of view that on the people of Cuba, there's definitely going to be, I think, in my opinion, a tremendous revival of the faith. I think people are beginning to realize also that there's something more than just a materialistic world. People are looking for spiritual values. They're looking for these values that the Pope, or principles that the Pope is being emphasizing: the family, the traditions, the love of neighbor, the fraternity, the solidarity.
And that's really where their roots are as a people.
And the greatest, I think, of all is this emphasis on the youth. The youth is the future of the world. It's not only the future of Cuba, it's the future of the world, the future of this country, the future of Europe, the future of Asia, Africa, all the continents of the world. The older generations now, they've had their say, but they no longer will play the role they played in the past. It's the young people who have to be formed, how to prepare, who have to have the knowledge and understanding that these spiritual values are the things that are really going to push the world forward into a new era, into the new millennium that we are all expecting with great joy and thanks.
Exactly.
And the Pope seems to be warning these young people not only to avoid the selfishness and the Marxist-Leninism, but to avoid the materialism at the other end of the spectrum should capitalism and democracy suddenly sweep into this island nation, yes?
Well, this is exactly what I was trying to say before in terms of friendship. I think we need this relationship between people. And we are living, or we have lived in the past, a very individualistic type of societies. In other words, in which everything is individual. I, my self-interest. I am the one who's interested in my own well-being.
Yes.
No, we have to reverse that a little bit and realize that the well-being of ours is connected with the well-being of others. We have to have this unity.
Very good. Ambassador, we are now going to go to our field producer, Natalie French, who is there on the ground in Havana at this papal mass. Natalie, what's happening there?
Hi, Raymond. This is outstanding. I have participated in many masses with the Holy Father, and I have never seen anything like this. People started walking towards the plaza since 3:30 this morning. One of the most moving moments, which I believe you were not able to see with the cameras, was when people started singing the Cuban national anthem. I saw people crying. There were people from Miami standing next to people from Havana singing together. It was very moving. I've seen everybody around here has a smile from ear to ear. There are banners that tell the world that this country is really loving every minute of this Pope's visit. And I also saw one that was very moving as well that says, the best law is love. And I think that's probably one of the main messages that people want to tell the world is that Cuba needs a lot of love. And also, people, again, since yesterday, everybody around Havana was commenting that they would definitely go to the Mass, whether or not they were Catholic. I mean, something that this country has really embraced from the moment the Pope touched ground here in Havana.
Very good. Well, I thank you, Natalie, for the report, and our best to you. We'll check in with you later if we can establish contact. We thank you. Well, we hear that there is this outpouring, and the people have walked from very early in the morning to get here. The transportation, we should say, is a problem on the island. So it really is a sacrifice for these people to come to this Mass.
Yes. She mentioned there were some folks from Miami, Cubans from Miami, and our Archbishop Favalora, our ordinary, he's in Miami, he's in Cuba with a group of the faithful of Miami,
Yes.
visiting the Holy Father and in solidarity with him and the church in Cuba.
Good. Great. To give us his unique perspective on this final day of the Pope's trip to Cuba, here's Auxiliary Bishop Augustin Roman of Miami. Today, the Holy Father is to go to the Square of the Revolution, so-called, to have a Mass. What is the significance of he going to that site?
Do you know the Civic Square is the place where we had in the 59 the celebration of the Mass, 1 million of people. We celebrated the Mass with our bishops, and we had the presence of the statue of the Blessed Mother that came from Santiago de Cuba, from El Cobre. I think that this is a very historical place for us as Catholics.
And what do you think will be the impact of John Paul II now saying Mass in that same location?
Will be really extraordinary because we will have the opportunity, or the people of Cuba will have the opportunity to see the Holy Father and to pray with the Holy Father. That is most important, that to see the Holy Father. And I think that will be a very special moment. I am sure the Holy Father will finish with the Angelus, and really I think that this is a beautiful day for us.
Once the Holy Father leaves later today, what do you hope will be the lasting effect of this visit? What do you hope the Cuban people will remember?
First of all, the Holy Father, after the Mass, will go to see the bishops at the Archbishop House. And after that, he will have an encounter with all the priests, religious, and laity people in the cathedral, the historical cathedral of Havana. And it's after that that the Holy Father will go to the airport. I think that this is a beautiful moment. The Holy Father, during all these days, preached 4 homilies and five talks. And I think that in all this message we have really a light, the enlightened messages. What I hope that our people in Cuba and outside of Cuba, our Cuban people in the exile, will have the opportunity to grow in faith, in hope, and in charity.
There you hear Bishop Roman. Faith, hope, and charity is what his hope is for his people and for himself. We heard something there where the last time Mass was celebrated in Jose Marti Square, where this Mass will take place, was in 1959 for a Eucharistic Congress.
That's right.
You both were there. Tell us about that.
We both were there, right?
Yes, that was just before I left Cuba to come to the United States.
It was on, I believe it was on the 8th of September, on the feast of our Lady of Charity, when it happened, and there were already clashes between Catholics and others.
As we continue talking, we will take you now live to the Papal Mass in Havana,